The training for a Roman soldier was not just a matter of learning how to fight. It was a relentless, grueling process that transformed individuals into a cohesive unit capable of unimaginable violence. Imagine this: a young recruit, eager to serve, steps into a harsh world where failure is not an option. From the moment they enter training, they're subjected to punishing drills, where every misstep is met with physical punishment and harsh discipline. Did you know that the very first lesson for these soldiers was often a lesson in pain? The Romans designed their training methods to break down the individual and build up a soldier who could endure the horrors of battle. This relentless approach created not only physically strong warriors but also mentally resilient ones, prepared to face fearsome enemies and the chaotic battlefield. The extreme measures taken to instill loyalty and effectiveness reveal a military culture that thrived on discipline, pushing men to their limits. You might think of a soldier's training as simply preparing for combat, but in reality, it was a psychological game too. Each drill was a reminder that they were part of something larger than themselves, a machine built for war. They learned to rely on one another, forging bonds that would help them survive not just in training but in the brutal engagements to come. And then there's the chilling reality. The very toughness that was bred into them also served a dual purpose. It was meant to instill fear, not just in the recruits but also in their enemies. Roman generals understood that a well-trained army could intimidate opponents before the first sword was ever drawn. Can you imagine the psychological impact of facing an army that had been pushed beyond its limits and was hungry for victory? Understanding these brutal training methods gives you insight into the mindset of the Roman legion. It was not just about preparing for battle. It was about creating a force that could instill fear and maintain control, both internally and against external threats. As we delve deeper into the legacy of the Roman legion, you'll see that this culture of fear and brutality was the bedrock of their military success. It was a system designed to conquer, and conquer they did, leaving a legacy that continues to evoke both fascination and horror. Roman generals understood that fear could be a powerful weapon, one that could shift the tide of battle before a single sword was drawn. They mastered psychological warfare, using it to create an atmosphere of dread that enveloped their enemies. But how did they achieve this? One chilling tactic involved showcasing their ruthlessness through gruesome displays of power. Imagine standing on a battlefield and witnessing the aftermath of a Roman victory. Prisoners crucified along the roads as a warning, their lifeless bodies serving as grim reminders to anyone contemplating rebellion. This practice wasn't just about physical dominance. It was a calculated move to instill fear in the hearts of those who dared oppose them. Roman generals believed that by demonstrating their brutal strength, they could demoralize their enemies even before the fighting began. It was as if they were whispering, "You will lose. Resistance is futile." This strategic use of fear allowed the Roman legion to win many battles without engaging in prolonged conflict, as the mere thought of facing such a formidable force was enough to send enemies into a panic. Most people think of warfare as straightforward battles fought on the front lines, but the Romans innovated on this concept, turning fear itself into a weapon. They understood the psychological impact of their actions and used it to their advantage. This wasn't mere intimidation. It was a fundamental part of their military strategy. When news spread of a Roman army's brutal reputation, many potential foes chose to surrender rather than face the horrors that awaited them. Understanding these psychological tactics gives you a clearer view of the Roman legion's effectiveness. It wasn't just their training or their advanced weaponry. It was their ability to instill fear that made them so powerful. The mere mention of the Roman name would send shivers down the spine of their enemies. As you delve deeper into the brutal reality of the Roman military, remember that the real battle often occurred in the minds of their opponents long before any swords clashed. By employing such psychological warfare, the Roman legion ensured their dominance and crafted a legacy that has echoed through history. Fear became not just a tactic, but a fundamental part of their military identity, shaping the way they fought and the way they were perceived by the world around them. This exploration reveals the depth of their strategy, where violence was not only meted out on the battlefield, but also felt in the hearts of their enemies. The Roman legion was notorious for its brutal battle tactics, and the chilling reality is that these tactics often left a trail of devastation in their wake. Most people think of ancient warfare as a noble pursuit of honor and glory, but the truth is far more gruesome. Roman soldiers were trained not just to fight, but to kill with brutal efficiency. Their formation techniques, such as the testudo or tortoise formation, allowed them to advance against enemy lines while maintaining a wall of shields for protection. Yet this strategy also brought them into close combat, where the brutality of their training was put to the ultimate test. Imagine standing amidst the chaos of battle, where the clash of metal rings in your ears and blood spills on the ground. Roman soldiers were trained from day one to not only withstand the horrors of war, but to embody them. Their weapons, particularly the gladius, were designed for swift and lethal strikes, making every encounter with the enemy a deadly dance. They were encouraged to use their training to inflict as much pain as possible, turning battles into horrific spectacles of violence. But it wasn't just about winning, it was about instilling fear in both their enemies and their own rank. The Romans understood that a reputation for brutality could lead to victory before the first sword was ever drawn. The sight of a Roman legion advancing in tight formation was often enough to send enemies fleeing in terror. This psychological tactic of creating a fearsome reputation was as much a part of their strategy strategy as their physical might. Moreover, the aftermath of battles often highlighted the legion's ruthless approach. Captives were not treated as prisoners of war in the traditional sense. Instead, they were subjected to brutal treatment, often facing execution or forced labor. This served two purposes. It reinforced the might of the Roman legion and sent a chilling message to others considering resistance. The gruesome reality was that the Romans preferred to eliminate potential threats rather than allow for the possibility of rebellion. By exploring these brutal battle tactics, you see that the reputation of the Roman legion was built on more than just discipline. Their willingness to inflict severe violence and their use of psychological warfare were integral to their success. Understanding these aspects reveals a darker side of military history, one that is often glossed over in tales of Roman glory. As you reflect on the Roman legion, remember that their power stemmed not just from their training, but from a culture that embraced fear and brutality as key components of warfare. Treatment of captives and enemies by the Roman legion reflects a brutal philosophy that extended beyond mere conquest. Most people think of warfare as a means to an end, but for the Romans, it was about establishing a legacy of fear and control. When a Roman soldier captured an enemy, it wasn't just a victory, it was an opportunity to send a chilling message. The fate of these captives often hinged on their perceived value to the Roman Empire. Some were enslaved, forced to labor in the fields or work in the households of the elite, while others faced a much darker fate. Imagine a battlefield where the remnants of the defeated lie scattered, not just as corpses but as warnings to those who might defy Roman authority. This was a common reality in the wake of Roman victories. Captives who displayed any semblance of resistance or rebellion faced execution in gruesome spectacles meant to entertain and instill fear. Crucifixion, a method often used to punish not only the condemned but also to serve as a visual deterrent, became a grotesque hallmark of Roman might. It wasn't uncommon for defeated enemies to be paraded through the streets before their gruesome end, demonstrating the power the Romans held over life and death. But the brutality did not stop with executions. Captives were often subjected to horrific forms of humiliation and torture, designed to break their spirit and deter others from resisting Roman rule. This treatment was not simply about vengeance. It was a strategic move to ensure that the memory of defeat lingered in the minds of both captives and their communities. Fear became a tool of governance, a way for the Romans to maintain control over newly acquired territories. Analyzing these practices reveals a grim aspect of Roman military culture that goes beyond traditional warfare. The Romans did not just conquer, they obliterated any hope of uprising by instilling a sense of hopelessness in their enemies. It's this intertwining of brutality and strategy that forged the Roman legion's reputation as the most fearsome fighting force in history. In essence, the treatment of captives was not merely a consequence of war. It was a calculated decision to project power and suppress any thoughts of rebellion, effectively ensuring the legion's dominance for centuries. Now that we've explored the intricate layers of the Roman legion's brutal legacy, let's take a moment to reflect on what this means for our understanding of history. The Roman legion is often romanticized as an epitome of military genius and discipline, but the truth reveals a much darker narrative, one filled with fear, psychological manipulation, and ruthless efficiency. The legacy of the legion is not just about their tactical prowess on the battlefield, but also about the lengths they went to in order to maintain control and dominance over their enemies. You've seen how their training methods were designed to strip away individuality, creating soldiers who were not only obedient, but also conditioned to endure and inflict pain. The harsh realities of this training were essential for crafting a force that could execute the brutal strategies required for survival in a harsh world. The mental and physical conditioning of these soldiers was a deliberate choice, reflecting a military culture that prioritized strength and fear above all else. Moreover, the psychological tactics employed by Roman generals showed a chilling understanding of warfare. By instilling fear in their enemies long before the battle began, they effectively won fights before a single sword was drawn. The practice of displaying defeated foes or punishing captives served to reinforce the idea that defiance would be met with severe consequences, creating a culture of fear that resonated throughout the territories under Roman control. The brutal tactics in battle, including the lethal formations and relentless assaults, further solidified the legion's reputation as the most fearsome fighting force of its time. Their readiness to engage in close combat and inflict maximum damage demonstrated a brutal efficiency that is hard to comprehend in modern contexts. This willingness to embrace violence and terror as tactics of war is a sobering reminder of how history is often shaped by the brutal realities of power struggles. As we conclude this exploration, it's important to remember that the Roman legion's history is complex. It serves as a reflection of the darker aspects of human nature, where fear and brutality intertwine with the pursuit of power. The lessons from this period compel us to reconsider how we perceive military might and the cost of dominance. The next time you think about the Roman legion, remember the unsettling truths that reveal the intricate tapestry of fear, power, and humanity's darker side woven into their legacy. If you enjoyed this epic journey, please subscribe to our channel for more thrilling historical tales. Don't miss out on new videos. Hit the notification bell to stay updated.